All right, everybody, we're going to continue on with the dynamic duo of Don Ransberg and Paul Meeker. I believe Don is up first to discuss some of the technology innovations and changes that are coming.
Thank you, everybody. Like Cody said, my name is Don Ransberg. I'm Executive Director of IT Service Management and IT here at Franklin. And so some of the things that we've done out of some of the committees and initiatives that we've worked through over the past several months is talking about how we can ensure that there are proper links to IT to get things done, to make sure you're contacting the right people, to put through tickets, to get help. And so that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit at first here. And so one of the things that I want to mention first is that we do have an online knowledge base. It can be accessed a couple of different ways through both support.franklin.edu as well as support.urbana.edu. It goes to a centralized repository of information for all Blue Quill support, email support, office support, support that you need from a faculty perspective that would request software, new hardware, or the like. So I wanted to make sure and say that out loud. We're going to continue to expand that knowledge base to ensure that information is out there that we need, and we discard information that changes over time. So please utilize that tool. We would also hope that we're passing that information, that site, along to adjuncts as well. There's great student-related information out there. There's great adjunct-related information out there. It already has Zoom help and tutorials out there for the upcoming transition to Zoom as well. The other thing that I kind of want to talk about, so that's the support site, but I want to talk about a little bit how to make sure that that as a faculty group, that if there are things that need to be changed, whether that's Blue Quill related, whether that's classroom technology related, whether that's new software in the student environment, or even for your staff, faculty laptop or hardware, that as we've talked through from a committee perspective, we feel that the Academic Technology Committee is going to be a great conduit going forward. And we're going to communicate this more. We're going to make sure that everyone understands that the Academic Technology Committee is kind of your voice from a faculty perspective to put through these types of recommendations. And so some of the reasons we feel that is from an ATC committee is that the body has a representation of all of the colleges. They have I-4 representation. They have IT representation as well. And when these ideas come through, whether it's for something associated with a cost to it, or it's a big change that affects a great deal of people, there's a great a discussion that can happen because it affects different colleges, different people in different ways, so that when it comes through there, we can talk through what are those differences and how do they affect the different groups, and then we can decide, is this change worthy, should we push it through? And so that's the idea, is that once a change to an IT system is recommended through the ATC, we can do a full faculty Senate recommendation that will then be passed back to my boss, Rick Sunderman, or back directly to me, that we can then move forward on with a recommendation of the full faculty. Other ways to certainly contact IT, as you guys all know, you can certainly contact us through email, through helpdesk@franklin.edu or helpdesk@urbana.edu. We certainly have call-in information out on support.franklin.edu as well. I do want to say, and many of you do already, you can certainly contact me as well. I have responsibility, over a good deal of the endpoint environment here at Franklin, from software budget to endpoint hardware budget to project management outside of the Blue Quill area to our help desk and break fix environment. So if there's something that you want to come and reach out directly to me, I can help move an idea or an initiative along the process. Eventually, what we're going to try to do is we're going to, in the name of transparency, have an IT project portal that we're going to put on most likely a link from Community that people can see what projects are going on. both budgeted projects that have money attached to them, as well as projects that maybe are program related or life cycle related from an IT perspective, so that people can see and understand what resources are being used, timelines are established, and then there'll be a request process that can be done through that IT project portal so that people can add new projects over time, and they can be prioritized based on a defined process. And if there's new money needed, we can go through university leadership to make sure that we can get new money attached to those projects as well. Paul's going to speak a lot more specifically about Blue Quill, but certainly Blue Quill is part of IT. There's going to be a feature request portal that many of you know about today that's available today. They are going to work in the same manner from an ATC perspective, that the ATC is going to be kind of that gatekeeping body to understand should a change, should an idea move forward in the process, get some focused feedback, potentially recommend that we go do additional focused feedback as well to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all faculty as well as our students. And then I'll let Paul go on from Blue Quill from there. There were a couple other pieces, and Chris Coble gave me a couple of slides that Megan and team wanted me to make sure I touch base on as well from a reporting standpoint. So I think many of you know that we're doing a transition for reports right now to the BI technology in Microsoft. So the new site is bi.franklin.edu, where we're transitioning from both reports.franklin as well as reports.urbana. As part of that migration, a good deal of people have looked through a number of those reports that are in both of those older systems and have seen that many of the reports in there, I think there was 1,000-ish reports in those two systems combined, and I think half of them hadn't been used in more than a year. And so those reports are kind of being archived off and are not going to be shown as available in the new BI. I just want to make sure I say that out loud. But since it will be archived, it will be available to bring back in at some point in time, that we can bring that into the new BI infrastructure. And so at the end of the day, the end state for reports is that there's going to be one location for all reports based on your permissions that either you have had in the past or that you're going to have in the future based on your role. And when you open up that, you'll see those reports available to you there. There will be a greatly reduced number of reports available, with one report doing multiple things that a single report did in the past, where you'll have slicers and different ways of manipulating dates or program information or term information. So that's going to be somewhat of a new change. And then it'll get easier from a browser perspective as well, as that we've had to use different browsers for different tools in the past. We're going to move to one browser as well. Those are the big things I wanted to talk about today. Is there any questions that anybody has that wanted to bring up now before Paul comes on? Sure, Brenda.
Hi, Don. Where is the support site, please? Could you clarify where you mentioned the one location for us to go to that has multiple pieces of information. So could you just share where that is?
Yeah, so support.franklin.edu is the direct URL. We've also did a redirect for support.urbana.edu that goes to that same spot and has same information. And the way that the articles work, if you click on, we just went through a major migration last week to kind of move all the systems to the Franklin environment, but the way the articles work, at the top of each article, it'll show who the audience, who this article is intended for. So that's what we're kind of hoping, that if there are differences between universities, or if there are differences between a faculty member and a student, that's where you will see the difference in how it relates to you. It's a great search tool out there as well, so you can search really easily, and we're constantly updating it. Thank you. I think Bruce had a question.
Two real quick ones. You said you're going to go to one browser. Which browser?
Chrome is going to be the recommended browser for BI.
Okay.
And the other one is really not a question, but a statement. One of the things that keeps coming up amongst faculty is, where do I go to find X? You know, there's community, there's teams, there's reports, there's BI, there's support.
Yeah.
If we could find a way to make that architecture more understandable and
Absolutely.
intuitive.
It's something that we've heard, and it's a great point, Bruce, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, at the end of the day, we hope that the new community, which went live last week, can kind of be either a link repository or some landing page that will help you understand. Many of you, so Colin Luther reports to me, and many of you have attended some of his trainings, whether Microsoft related or process related. Colin and I talked a couple weeks ago about explaining the differences between Teams, Skype, certainly Zoom, and so there's a training that's going to come out that's going to help people understand that. It'll be recorded to come out, but you make a great point, and we will continue to help make that easier for people over time.
Hello. A question I have is, faculty's had the impression in the past or knowledge that certain items take a while project-wise to get prioritized. Could you talk a little bit about, if we make a recommendation to Academic Technology Committee on XYZ, how it is prioritized and acted on from there? Because basically, the way I understand it, there's a lot on the list right now.
Yeah, so the process is still being defined, and what I hope for that process is that we will work with university leadership as well as faculty and ATC to define that process. I'm not going to try to define that process for the university, but I'll certainly make recommendations. Recommendations will come out of our ATC committee. They will also come out of university leadership. And then the part where I talked about the IT project portal is the transparency side of things, is that once that process is defined, communicated, hopefully we can get enough agreement from everybody that this is what we're going to go forward with and strive to accomplish with the timelines and approval levels and all of that, that then at the very least too is that if we feel like it is dragging for whatever reason, we can go to that project portal and understand why, and understand that this has been prioritized higher, this already had pre-budgeted dollars associated to it, this is new money that wasn't budgeted for that we're going to have to find money for, a university leader has decided to but that project portal will tell the story is what I'm hoping to. You know, to your point, Tim, is that, you know, it's a little bit just of it's within a bubble and no one knows why and no one knows that how it's moving. And so that's really where that's going to come in. We'll have a process. We don't know if that process is going to work. You know, we hope it is, but we also know there's always competing things going on at the university. And so where that project portal will come in, it'll at least bring that transparency to say, I can go to a place and see why. And then if a boss wants to get involved and other bosses, they want to talk it through, so be it. Yep.
Don, thanks for talking about the transition and the migration from reports.franklin.edu to bi.franklin.edu. That was actually news to a number of us last week, and one of the items that came up recently in a faculty meeting related to how to get information about the program, enrollment reports, those kinds of things, which a number of folks have been able to kind of work through individually with IT to have emailed different enrollment reports and updates. Can you talk about how that will work in bi.franklin.edu?
I don't know the ins and outs of that, I'm sorry. What I will say is that Chris would have loved to be here today to talk through that, but Chris Coble and his staff, through their input form at ie@franklin.edu, can help you through that. Certainly calling Chris is also another route, and I think we all feel sometimes that from an IT perspective, calling an individual is kind of, we've pushed people off of that, and not that we want that to be the stated process. Certainly helpdesk@franklin.edu is for a reason, and certainly AHA from a Blue Quill perspective, and soon the project portal, but we all want to get things done, and we want to make sure it's going to work for you in the best way possible. So I would recommend Chris Coble at this point in time to kind of work through those, especially if there's already been work completed. Does that help a little bit at least? I'm sorry. I'm just not totally involved in that side.
Other questions for Don? All right, Don, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So, can you still hear me online? We're good? All right, cool. So I'm Paul. I am Assistant Director of Product Development, so mostly focused on Blue Quill and now the Gateway. I've got a few things to share with you today. I'm going to talk about some more recent features that were developed. I'm going to talk about some upcoming stuff that we have in the works, and then show you some of those resources that were referenced before by Don. So, how many people are familiar with the Student Gateway and what that actually means with like confidence? Okay, good. So when we say gateway, in the beginning it sort of was just everything that was outside of the classroom that was on the internet, basically, like the old myFranklin, stuff like that. But now when we say gateway, what we mean is the actual app that you download on your mobile device, okay? So when you hear the word gateway, at least coming from my department, we're talking about the actual app that students can download on Android or iOS devices. Now, the only caveat I would say is anything that we build for that app that is outside of the classroom, we're also going to try to replicate inside Blue Quill on the landing page. So a good example of that, which I'll show here in a second, is we built this new financial view where students can see how much they owe, stuff like that, on their mobile device. We replicated that interface when they first log in to Blue Quill as well. So the Gateway, again, is the mobile version, and then Blue Quill, myFranklin, is sort of the desktop experience. The idea for Gateway is that, well, first, it came out of the Red Carpet Committee. They wanted students to have more mobile access and stuff like that. So it's really a supplement to what students experience on the desktop. It's not meant to be a replacement or anything like that. Students can do a few things in their courses with the Gateway right now, but they can't do everything. So that's sort of how it should be viewed right now. So I'm going to click this link. Hopefully it'll work. And then show you a couple screens of what this looks like. It's not going to work. One second. Copy link. That's weird. Paste. It's not working. All right, well, this is a good opportunity to show support.franklin.edu, because this is where I was going to show the screens of this anyway. So there's a whole host of articles about the Student Gateway, which is how I'm going to show what this looks like. So this is support.franklin.edu anyway. So the Student Gateway, here's sort of a screenshot, and this highlights the different sections that students see. So on the top, they have their name and ID, which has been blocked out here. And then there's an academic calendar, what year, academic year they're in, fall 2018 in this example. They can see a link to the different terms coming up. They see their GPA, and then there's this financial section here, which says how much they owe and how much they've paid. The student example, they've paid everything, so everything's green and looks good. Below that, they have their current courses, so they can see their current grade, when their next assignment is due. They get some notifications on here when there's new discussions and stuff like that. And then below that, there's a whole host of links for different resources. So they have, I'll call out the support roster, for example. When they click on that, they see who their advisor is, who their financial person is SFS. And they can actually schedule appointments from there too. So they can click a button and schedule an appointment or call those offices. So it's just meant to be an easy place for students to find all their stuff. So if you want to see more, there's actually a nice little video that gives you a fuller overview of this on this page. And here is, when you click on that financial view, it gives you this breakdown. There's a whole other article about this, but it tells you the breakdown of costs, how you plan to pay, like if you have financial aid, how much has been dispersed, employer funding, how much you're going to have to pay out of pocket. It's under self-pay, all that stuff. And then there's links to actually make a payment as well from there, which is nice. The course pages, so like I said, this is meant to be a supplement, at least right now. So they can't, for example, they can't submit a paper through the mobile app, but they can participate in a discussion if they want to. And they can join a meet session if they want to. So it's meant to be just sort of a supplement if it's needed that the student can do this. So the content inside of an object renders just like it does on your desktop. So here's an example of what that looks like. It's all just HTML, so it can show just like it does in Blue Quill. Again, they can participate in discussions. That's sort of what that looks like. They can read all the discussions. They can reply, respond to topics, stuff like that. The Meet tool is there. So in this, it goes to Adobe Connect. In the summer, it'll go to the Zoom. And Zoom has its own app, which works really well. I can show that during lunch when I do my Zoom stuff. So that's the Student Gateway. And that was, we're continuing to do features on it, development on it. We only have really 2 developers who work on it, and they work on it about half the time. So considering our resources, I feel really good that we've gotten this out and that it's functional for students and that they like it. But there's still a lot more to be done. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is this notification center. This was also a red carpet initiative. So let me go back and show that. So the idea of the notification center was to try to centralize a lot of the communications that students get, again, outside of the classroom. So stuff from financial aid, stuff from registration, proctors, all that kind of information, trying to centralize that for the students. So this is a feature that's both in the Gateway, the mobile app, and also in My Franklin Blue Quill when they log in. So the idea is, I'll show you the desktop version. There's a new little icon when students log in next to their hub, which will give them a little indicator of how many new messages they have. When they click that, it opens like this, where they see on the left, they'll see a list of all the messages they have, and then the right, the content of the message itself. And a lot of these messages will have links embedded in them so they can take an action right there. So this example is registering for courses. And we have a couple different types of messages. So this one is what we call an urgent message versus a standard message. So urgent message means when they log in, this is going to pop up right here that says register for courses before they do anything else. They can, of course, X out of it. They can read it. And, if they haven't met the conditions to get rid of that message, meaning registering for courses in this example, that will then show up the next day. After 24 hours, it'll show up again. So it'll show up until they dismiss it or until they've taken some kind of action. There aren't that many urgent messages. There's only one right now, which is the register for courses. Everything else is more standard, and they can dismiss it, and they'll just see the regular notification number on the side. This looks almost exactly the same on the mobile version, a little bit condensed, but students will be getting these messages. They've already started getting these messages, and we're continuing to work with Red Carpet Subcommittee on Communications and Carly Cecil especially. They have a whole list from various departments of these notifications that they want students to see. Right now, we only have, I think, 6 or 7. Some of them have an SMS component too, meaning they'll get a text message if they've signed up for that. So the idea is to try to centralize all these notifications so students will see them in one place. And like I said, it's both in mobile and a desktop. So that's out there now. Like I said, we're going to continue to add more notifications as we get them finished. The other one I wanted to show, this is on the instructor side. Let's see. So this is a recent feature. This is late policies inside the rubrics. So previously, I-4 had to sort of put in a late policy manually for every rubric they added. This basically just has the late policy in all the rubrics. So no matter what rubric there is, there's automatically going to be this late policy added to it. And this is based off of what's communicated to students, what the actual policy is. And so this is what it looks like here. This picture is what it looks like for students and instructors. So there's a certain percentage that's taken off. It's still instructor driven, so it's not looking at the due date in their submission and automatically taking it off. The instructor still has to click the box as to which how late the assignment is. And there's also an exception. So if it doesn't necessarily fit into one of the columns, they can click exception and put their own percentage in. That's what this looks like. So if they wanted to take something off that was not within the policy for any reason, they can do that with this exception part. When students see it, they'll see the rubric, and then at top it has a little disclaimer saying, here's your score, here's what your score would have been had it not been late. It doesn't say it like that, but that's the idea. So that's kind of neat. So those are a few of the recent features that we've developed. And then I wanted to share a couple things that we have in the works and a couple of mock-ups that we have here too. I think the control key on this keyboard doesn't work, is why I'm having issues. So, yeah, sorry. But it's also not letting me copy this. I'm going to need this link to show this. Yeah, it's not copying that link. Give me a second here, please. Let's do edit. There we go. Maybe this will work. Okay. User error. Usually is. All right, so before I show these mock-ups, this was sort of born out of the Blue Carpet Subcommittee to centralize feedback for students, is what we're saying. So I have a student view of what this could look like and an instructor view. These are still early mock-ups. We've heard a lot of feedback already on just the mock-ups, and we haven't had time to go back and refine them completely. But this is where we're at right now, and hopefully the way we want to do this is once we sort of finalize these mock-ups, we'll go ahead and start development, and we want to try this on a smaller group of courses as like a beta to make sure it's really refined before we release it to the whole university. So the idea is right now students have multiple places where they can find feedback, and people, faculty in the courses will often just say in the comments, look here for my feedback, or whatever, because we provide a lot of different ways, right? But it's not super centralized for the student. So the first part of this is centralizing it for students, and then in the Blue Carpet committees, when we've been talking about this, the idea came up that, well, we should also centralize it for instructors to make it easier to provide that feedback so that students get more feedback, which I agree with. So we also have an instructor mock-up of this as well. So for the student side, we thought the best way to do this would be to upgrade our student gradebook. Our student gradebook has been there since the old C2K system. It hasn't been updated since we've moved to myFranklin, which is now Blue Quill. So it's very outdated and old. It's just, I mean, how much can you really enhance a grid of things? So, but we have some ideas on that. So the idea is you'll get a little notification. So I'm in as a student here. There's a little notification that new grades have been submitted. I click this icon, and it looks something like this. It's probably kind of small in here, but I'll do my best. Go full screen, maybe just zoom in a little. Whoa. So this is a student gradebook where at the top I've got my overall grade. I can also switch between courses here if I wanted to. There's this grading scale and where I am in relation to that scale. These colors, you see a lot of purple. You're kind of like, what's that about? This is actually colorblind friendly in the mock-up. So there's some resources and websites so you can go to test how your colors do with color blindness. So that's why everything's sort of a different shade of purple. And then you've got this assignment breakdown, which shows all the assignments and how they fill up throughout the course and how much they're worth. And so, this one is worth 150 points, so it's got a little star by it because it's worth a lot, and the student should pay attention to that versus all these small ones, and then it sort of fills up as it goes. Down below, this is probably the more important stuff, is when a grade is submitted or when a feedback is submitted, you get this little new icon letting the student know that there's some feedback. We've received, some feedback on this as well, so it may not look like this. This is all hypothetical. We're going to continue to shop this around and get ideas. But the student says, learn more about your grade. They can click on this, and all their feedback would be in this kind of a thing. So this top one, this is just an example, but this top one would be sort of the comment that you leave in the gradebook as you're grading. The bottom one is video feedback. So if a student had submitted a file, and then you as the instructor submit a file back to that student with track changes, that would also show up here with a little word icon or something like that. Any type of feedback would all be right here. And the student could click on it, view the video, listen to the audio, open the file, that kind of thing. There's also the idea of having stats here, so showing the student more like where they stand in the course. There's nothing here right now. There's not a mock-up for that, but the idea is that would be easily available too. Talked about different histograms or different things like that to show the student distribution. So again, this is an early mock-up. It'll not look like this in the end, but the best way to get traction on stuff like this and to refine it is to just get something out there, get feedback, and keep refining it. And so that's sort of the process we're in right now. Let me show the instructor side next. And see. So for instructors, right now, I want to do a poll first. So how many people do their grading inside the grade grid or the grade book? Okay. How many people go inside the assignment and use the hub? It's about half and half, I would say. That's interesting. How many still like to go to the Dropbox and use the Dropbox? Okay, still a good number of people. Cool. So we have all these different places, obviously, to leave feedback, and we want to centralize that as well. And I didn't look at the people online, but I see it's blinking, so they may have participated too. So this is kind of busy because it's putting everything. So when there's a rubric, there's a score, there's a comment, there's feedback, all that stuff all into one place. And the idea is that this would look the same wherever you needed to access it. So in the grade grid, you could still do quick grades and put in numbers and stuff like that and comments, but maybe there's an advanced button inside the grade grid that you click and you get this same look and feel. This example, it would be inside the hub, inside the course roster, inside of an assignment where you click a button and this is what you see. So you get, on the top, the list of files that the student has submitted that you can either open or download. Opening would use our BQ Docs thing, and the problem with BQ Docs is that it doesn't always show formatting. And so I'm tempted to call that like a preview mode or something like that, because sometimes that's okay, but a lot of times, formatting is very important, so you need to download that original file. Eventually, we want to look into integrating with Office 365 so that you could just use the Word Online, but we're not there yet. Hopefully that's coming soon. So the student has submitted these files. Here below that, you've got where you can give the score, amount of points that they earned. Obviously, if you're using a rubric, that would determine the score. Here's that same comment area that you have now, and then audio-video would be right here. You could record your audio-video if you wanted to. Feedback file, so if you did do track changes or something like that and needed to give that back to the student, you could choose a file from your computer or drag and drop a file right there. And then, like I said, the rubric is below. The other thing that we have in this rendering is these little icons. I don't know if you can see them real well. You can see the orange one. This is to indicate whether or not the student has actually interacted with that piece of feedback. So, for example, if you've provided audio-video feedback, that would turn orange when they click play or something like that. Or if you've uploaded a file, it'll turn orange when they've actually downloaded that file. Let the comment, if they've opened to see that there's a comment. That one's a little harder to track down. And then there's some different debates going on, too, about whether or not we show feedback first and then reveal the grade, stuff like that. Some ideas being discussed with that as well. Again, this is just preliminary. It'll change. But that's sort of the direction we're going, just to try to centralize everything in one place so that it's easier and clear to the instructors of where they're leaving feedback. All right, so that's all the stuff I was going to show in that regard. Let's shift over to resources. So I already actually went to this site, but let me go to it again and just show a couple things. So support.franklin.edu, which Don mentioned. All the Blue Quill related stuff is here on the top as far as links. And then general technology support, so eText, Microsoft Office 365, all that kind of stuff is down below. And these are just categories, so you can search for anything. So if I wanted to learn about email, I can search that and get a whole host of articles related to email. Here's Email Training Guide, for example. So this is questions about Office 365. And then related articles are here on the left. Let's search for something else. I want to do grading. Grading with rubrics, grading in Blue Quill. This one's nice because it has a picture of me on it. That's actually an outdated video. We'll have to update. Sorry. So the search is really nice. Also, inside of Blue Quill, you all probably know this, but I'll just show it just in case. Yes, first try. Inside Blue Quill, we have this question box thing, this help button. When you click on that, you can search for articles right within where you are, and it's that same list. So I can search for grading. I can see the article right here. Any screenshots? If that's too small for me, I can click this little button here and open the whole article in a new tab. I kind of want to do a poll, not in this room, but I do kind of want to maybe talk to adjuncts and see if they and students and see if they like this miniaturized version or if they would rather just go to the full site. I thought this was a cool idea at the time, but I've gotten some feedback that people would rather just see the full thing. Anyway, maybe we could have both. So that's support.franklin. We also put our release notes here. So when we have a new release in Bluequill, we usually do a short video or at least do an explanation and link out to the articles about that. So the late policies for rubrics. We added a new academic dishonesty icon that links to the form, inside shortcuts for instructors. So that was like the main stuff from the last release. Our releases are usually a lot bigger than what you see here, but this is just stuff that's important to either students or instructors. We don't put like all the back-end changes and stuff like that on there. Okay. Let me check my slides. So the last thing I want to talk about, Cody mentioned this, and so did Don, this word AHA, as being sort of a portal to submit ideas or to view things. So AHA is a software that I found which is good at receiving ideas about new features as well as communicating out what we're working on. And it integrates with what we already use to do our project tracking, which is called Jira. So let me just show you where you can find that. I'm probably going to have to put in my code. If you guys get annoyed with this, just download the app and make your settings so that it gave me just like a notification on my phone. I just click approve and it did that. I didn't even have to put the number in, so that's nice. It's not as annoying as it was the first couple times. So in Community, if you go to Resources, Information Technology, right here I've got links to all the things that I just talked about. So if I wanted to see the current roadmap, click on this. It takes a minute to load because it's, that was actually not that slow. So this is all the stuff we work on. So CCP, maybe you don't care about as much, but these are things that we also work on. So Bluequill release, Gateway release, BQ, Gateway, BQ. We kind of typically do alternating like that with our releases. But this gives you sort of a high level of what we're working on. So like centralized feedback for students. That's one here. That's the initiative. And what I've done is this AHA has like goals, initiatives, and features. And so I try to tie everything to like an overall sort of goal that we have as a department. So centralized feedback is like a goal and initiative for that. And this updates in real time, so things change. We update this as we needed. And there's other slides here too. So if you click this arrow, if you wanted to see completed releases, you can see that here. If you wanted to see, this is my goals and initiatives page. Some bigger ideas and the progress of them. And then this is another roadmap which will show the progress of certain things that we're working on and when they're released. And then this is like a general features board that's just upcoming stuff that's a little bit more detailed. But anyway, this is basically just an online slideshow for information about what's coming up, what we have in our roadmap. Don mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it, but I'll mention, we do have a roadmap meeting once a month. So, we get information from HEC and recommendations for that, and we have other recommendations that come from elsewhere, and we sort of centralize all that and have this monthly roadmap meeting. And that meeting is open to anybody who wants to come. And if you can't come, you can watch it on Teams. I usually stream it on Teams. It's, about as exciting as this is right now. So if it's only once a month, maybe you can tolerate it. I don't know. So if you want to be invited to that so you can see it in Teams, or if you want to come, just send me an email, paul.meeker@Franklin. I'll add you to it. It's an open meeting. We have it in a big room, so there's plenty of room. But that's where we discuss what we're working on, what's coming up next, any new ideas, and sort of the priorities of things as we see them. So that's the current roadmap. Support page, release notes. So I already showed both of those. Support page is just the support.franklin. Release notes is just a sub-page within that. There's also this feature requests. So this is another, what's called AHA, is a software product that we use. When you click on that, it's going to ask for your email. It's probably not going to work for me because I have a different, it might. Basically, it'll ask you for your email. And since I'm the admin, it won't let me do it, but I'll try my other one. Ask you for your email. It does single sign-on, so it will know who you are from your Microsoft credentials, all that stuff, your regular credentials that you log in with everything. And there's this ideas portal. So let's say you have a really good idea for an enhancement to Blue Quill. You can click this Add New Idea. You select the product. Maybe it's for the app. Maybe it's for Blue Quill. You add your summary to what you think the idea is, more details. Click Share. That then notifies me that a new idea has been submitted, and it all is kept in this nice little list of ideas. And you can vote on them too. So like this example has 6 votes. I just voted for it again. So it sort of democratizes and makes a little bit more transparent some of the one-off ideas. Again, like Don said, though, you can always call me. Come to the roadmap meetings, talk to your ATC representative if you know who that is. There's all different kind of channels. So this is just another channel. And any ideas I hear outside of the system, I'm trying to put in here so that they're visible and you can see it. Another cool thing about this is if you add an idea that already sort of exists, it does sort of a word search, and it'll say, oh, does this sound like your idea? And you can say yes, and it will merge those. So it's not 15 different ideas that are exactly the same. So that is what AHA means, which is a weird name for software, but that's what it is.